All right. It's good, man. I know it's like 3:30 in the morning and shit. But I woke up in the middle of the night, can't sleep. So might as well make the time worthwhile, constructive. So, y'all probably sleep right now. So when y'all wake up, y'all probably see this, and I'll be working. So this, in a way, it works for me too. I'm still educating the people, still putting political education out there, still making people aware of what's going on inside the belly of the beast. All right, and also what's going on out here in the streets as well too, with information coming from the Under Lock and Key, and also the People's Voice News. All right, so the People's Voice News and the Under Lock and Key is a true news outlet that I utilize. All right, people's content. Um, by the people, for the people, that type of shit. All right. So just bear with me because it's a read. All right. Uh, it says, against the Party for Socialism and Liberation, proletarian feminism is the weapon to smash revisionism. This is coming from the People Voice, right? So it says, formed by a split with the Workers' World Party in 2004, which split from the Socialist Workers' Party nearly 50 years prior, the Party for Socialism and Liberation, all right, they right here on 116th Street Park Avenue. The Party for Socialism and Liberation has grown into a regular, at times domineering presence at demonstrations across the United States. After they claimed the answer coalition in the split, the Party for, or PSL, became a vital force in the anti-war movement of the 2000s. Though membership grew considerably during the 2008 economic crash and the Occupy movement, PSL numbers surged after the mass disillusionment of Bernie voters in the 2016 election. This growth has been dodged every step of the way by accusation of sexual abuse, male chauvinism, and internal corruption. What? We would not highlight all of the accusations here, as this article will become unreadably long. We will, for the sake of brevity, highlight some of the most flagrant wrongdoings and errors. Though we have met many sincere and dedicated rank and file members of the party and have counted some of them as close comrades, we could no longer stand by and wait for these offenses to be properly addressed by the PSL. So, to remain silent in the face of brazen male chauvinism, trans misogyny, racism, and abuse will be a disservice to our comrades within PSL, to ourselves as revolutionary women, and to the oppressed masses in general. Character assassin, oh man, character assassin. That's 48 laws of power, you know what I mean? Character assassin, when you assassinate your character, and you know they're gonna try to remove you, and you know it could be bang, bang, bang. You either read the 48 Laws of Power or go to YouTube and listen to the 48 Laws of Power. And character assassination is one of the tools. All right, so character assassination and denial. Stephen Powers and PSL, this is Philly based, not New York. In July 2020, Dakota of PSL Philly reported fellow member Stephen Powers for sexual misconduct at the behest of Powers' then girlfriend, who username Griselda online. In the weeks following his report, Dakota was charged with violating PSL's constitution, removed from organizational chats, slandered by his so-called comrades, and generally isolated by party leadership. Yep, that's 48 Laws of Power. Dakota highlighted this process in detail after attempting to struggle over the issue through the proper channels. PSL claims that Powers was thoroughly investigated, but thus far the only people to see any consequences for his predatory and abusive actions are the people he harmed. Griselda, who brought his behavior to the attention of other party cadre, has been systematically harassed and stalked by party leadership. Why? Because she spoke her mind. In a formal party statement, PSL even disclosed Griselda's legal name and location, and declared that their investigation committee concluded that Griselda had falsely accused Powers. See, right there, that's what you know is bullshit. But then again, sometimes, females be lying too. That be the bullshit. Because you know how many people that fucking ended up doing 10 years, 15 years, and ended up finding out that, these people wasn't even the person that did the rape. Like, what the fuck? You got people that got cut, stabbed, jumped, throughout their whole entire bed, and they end up finding out they're innocent. That's why I say, like, damn, yo, can't play judge. Like, is this person really guilty? Like, how you know, like, we got the blood. I mean, this is the United States system. That's why when it comes to No We Gonna Lose Party, I'm sorry, yes. We're against U.S. imperialism, yes. No We Gonna Lose Party is militant anti-imperialism, yes. But we're not going for the deceptive intelligence. We're not going for the slippery slope. Meaning if you have a sexual offense or a rape, and try to come to us or try to come to me with how could I go with a piece of paper that's produced by the system? We're not going through that headache. You got a sex offense, you got a rape. Only way that shit will be cleared by the party, right? If you have that person next to you, present, and all three of us speak. Like, all right, it was really good. That only happens one time with someone I know. And, hey, he held his own and shorty said the truth. You know what I mean? So you can't always be quick to jump the gun. All right. So it's worth noting that PSL has taken down a statement down to Griselda threatening suicide. Some members now insist that she was not doxxed, repeating the line that the original statement had only her first name in it. What is perhaps most concerning about PSL's treatment of Griselda is the fact that the party's investigation into the matter was entirely internal, though she was never a party member. An internal committee of PSL members reading through text messages is not only unqualified to rule out abuse, it is obviously employed to avoid transparency and protect the organization's reputations at any cost. So let us be crystal clear. This is not an internal issue of party discipline. This is not an internal issue of party discipline. This is an issue of a party member abusing someone outside of the PSL. All right, let me say this again, because they got this in bold letters. This is not an internal issue of party discipline. This is an issue of a party member abusing someone outside of the PSL. So the process was further compromised by Powers' close friendship with members of the steering committee, which headed the investigation. As I said, it has to be impartial, man. I mean, if we know someone, if you have a committee, right, and someone's going through some type of hearing, all right, or let's say for those who's watching, if it's not a hearing, trial, the one that's presiding has to be impartial. I mean they can't know the person, right? Like, oh, that's my boy. They can't know the person, and yeah, basically can't know the person. That's so it could be impartial. That's what he's talking about. All right, so the process was further compromised by Powers' close friendship with members of the steering committee, which headed the investigation. Steering committee members Timor was seen hanging out with Stephen Powers with other PSL members during the investigation, despite contact with Powers being restricted by the party. So, as recently released statement by former PSL Philly members, originally intended for internal struggle, details how PSL manipulated Griselda's account to make her out to be a historical woman. See that bullshit? And distorted the context for Griselda's consent in order to find Stephen Powell's innocent abuse. Now, that's that bullshit. The steering committee also concealed the fact that Powers had another accuser. Nah, that's real bullshit right there. If revolutionary parties truly wish to earn the position of vanguard, they must be accountable to the masses, both inside and outside party membership. PSL attempts to resolve contradictions between themselves and the unorganized masses through secretive internal meetings reveals not only a disconnect from the broader masses, but a deep fear and distrust of them as well. So this is far from the first time that PSL has sprung to the defense of over-degreed white chauvinists in his rank. Yeah, that shit wasn't going over here. I don't try that dumb shit over here. Alright. You know, for a fact, this part of 116th Street Park Avenue is not Columbia University. You know what I'm saying? This is East Harlem. That's right, this is Philly. Boom. And ain't none of the mommies out here playing that shit. Alright, so anti-indigenous chauvinists, the Red Nation statement. On January 17, 2017, the Red Nation, a coalition of native and non-native activists, educators, students, and community organizers advocating native liberation, publishes a piece detailing the abuse of indigenous women by PSL. PSL, once again, is Party for Socialism and Liberation. Albuquerque leader Chris Banks and predatory racist behavior towards indigenous women by PSL generally details are withheld for the protection of the victims. You see this shit? I mean, see right now, so you got this shit with PSL, then you got this shit, man, listen. You know what I'm about to say, right? What Malcolm X said? Oh, man. But we got to be open-minded. But this the reason, though. This the reason why Malcolm X said what he said. We could work in solidarity, but they got to have their own party. We have our own party, because just to avoid the bullshit, you know what I mean? All right. But we can stand in solidarity and struggle and things like that. So, all right. And the piece TRN highlights their efforts to combat PSL's behavior and its sexist characterization of the women involved as paranoid. Yo, you see this shit? Paranoid, emotional, gossiping, along with the racist characterization of them as superstitious. Hey, yo, man, that whole shit, man, I just call that shit rape culture right there. For real, yo, I can see that shit, like, that's rape culture. You know what I mean? They switching the whole shit around and shit on these people. That's fucked up. You know what I mean? Hopefully they still got some justice. So let's see, all right. That's crazy. So, you see this shit? So Griselda's the one, you know what I mean, that got violated, but then they make her look like being the bad person. You know what I mean? She's the one that got violated, but they make her look like being the bad person. Oh, she's being hysterical, she's paranoid, and she's emotional, and this, that, and the third, and, you know, character assassination, and listen, I'm not going to put my person, but listen, I can relate to some of that shit. All right. TRN correctly points out that this is not merely male chauvinism on behalf of PSL. It also demonstrates a pervasive settlerism within the party. This is further made evident by PSL's party program, which confusingly affirms the need for stolen lands to be returned to indigenous nations, but ultimately places the right to redistribute these lands in the hands of the socialist movement. So instead of decolonization, PSL proposes using settler colonialism as a means for socialism and liberation. So these colonial conceptions of socialism are common on the left and by no means extraordinary, but it must be heavily criticized and combated to end settler hegemony. All organizations have a class character, and it's clear from their activity that PSL represents the interests of the settler class in the United States of America and its continued domination. There can be no room for settler socialism amongst genuine revolutionaries. Okay. So now this is All right, so that's a PSL. So first we had the PSL from where? The first person from PSL. Okay, the first person now it was covering, which is PSL in general, right? Party for Socialism and Liberation. It was giving you the history, saying that basically the Party of Socialism and Liberation. Now I mean, they broke free from, or they did a split work from the Workers' World Party. So you have the Workers' World Party, and the Workers' World Party, right? In 2004, the Workers' World Party broke away from the Socialist Workers' Party. So, and here in the United States of America, you have first the Socialist Workers' Party. They the first ones that came out. And then out of the Socialist Workers' Party, they still around, comes about the Workers' World Party. And then Workers' World Party is still around. But out of the Workers' World Party comes about New Blood, Party for Socialism and Liberation. All right. So now, so I already covered the piece about Party of Socialism and Liberation, about a party member that was based in Philly. All right. You know how he basically sexually violated this lady. I don't have all the details, but from what I read, violated. And from the way it says that boys covering it, violated. You know what I'm saying? The process was further compromised by Power's close friendship with members of the steering. I already read that part. A recently released statement by former PSL Philly members, originally intended for internal struggle, details how Party, Socialism, and Liberation, look at that. It just gets me tight just reading this shit. Manipulated Griselda's account to make her out to be a historical woman and distorted the context for Griselda's consent in order to find Stephen Powers innocent of abuse. The steering committee also concealed the fact that Powers had another accuser. If revolutionary parties truly wish to earn the position of vanguard, they must be accountable to the masses, both inside and outside party membership. So PSL's attempts to resolve contradictions between themselves and the unorganized masses through secretive internal meetings reveals not only a disconnect from the broader masses, but a deep fear and distrust of them as well. This is far from the first sign that PSL has sprung to the defense of over-degree right chauvinists in its rank. Okay, how long is this? Because I got to do the other part too. All right, since it's 3:45 in the morning, yeah, I'm only doing this part, and I'll come back for the under lock key, the other part of the show. I'm just finished reading this. Boy, man, I don't be liking when they be writing man long, man. Like, yo, man, you writing a book or is this part of the newspaper? All right. Yo, all right. All right, TRN, all right. TRN correctly points out that this is not merely... All right. So it says TRN correctly points out that this is not merely male chauvinism on behalf of PSL. It also demonstrates a pervasive settlerism within the party. Settlers. All right, I see what you're talking about. It also demonstrates a pervasive settlerism within the party. This is further made evident by PSL's party's program, which confusingly affirms the need for stolen land to be returned. How is that confusing? The need for stolen land to be returned to indigenous nations, but ultimately places the right to redistribute these lands in the hands of the socialist government. Instead of decolonization, PSL proposes using settler colonialism as a means of socialism. Peep the bullshit. See, that's why Malcolm X says what he says. And that's when man, listen, and I ain't racist. But that's why y'all be careful with that Oh, we gotta be careful. See, though, you got white supremacists. I mean, you have your liberals, which is your undercover racist people, and more likely, PSLs are probably your liberals. You know what I'm saying? The PS, you understand, son? Because all right, because we could both be anti-imperialists, right? But you have your militant anti-imperialists that stand in solidarity with the world-class struggles that fight against oppression, that fight for their sovereignty, right? And that they want their country to be socialist, right? Boom. And they will take up arms if necessary. Yes, outside of the United States, yes. Boom, no doubt. Within the United States, been tried so many times. We already see where that goes. Haven't been successful. So I don't even think it's not even need to mention that. But, however, we do uphold Second Amendment, right, to bear arms for self-defense. You know, that's an inalienable right to defend yourself, you know. And with No Reunion's Party, you know, for individuals who will be or want to, not here in New York State, though, maybe in a different state, you know, want to march and file, rank and file with your AK-47s, AR-15s, or whatever, yeah, y'all can do that. You know what I'm saying? If we could do that in New York, shit, why not? But, I don't know, see, a part of me when it comes to that, even though, you know, right, you see the white militias, you see, now you got the black militias, and all this is new, so I'm just trying to see what's going to happen. I'm just watching, like, all right, what's really good, like, this, you know, you gotta study the United States government, right? So, like, you know that during the McCarthy era, right? So during the McCarthy era, fucking United States, you know what I mean, because of the school system, right? And then the commercials, and during the Cold War, right? Because the Cold War, it was basically like two imperialist countries going at it with each other. Two capitalist countries going at it with each other. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, two capitalist countries and, you know, two superpowers. One was capitalist, imperialist, though. And the other one was a socialist, right? But nevertheless, an imperialist, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong. All right? So, you have the Cold War with the United States here, Russia's communism, right? And then you have, you know, China, communist China is in the Cold War. Then you have North Korea, Cold War. And then, of course, you know, when you bring them close to the West, you got your Fidel Castro, Cuba. And you have, you know, Venezuela. And throughout the world, they always get, you know, like, oh, this is unpatriotic, so to speak, or this is that, this is this. And that's not really the case because it's basically the people saying, you know what, this is oppressive. You know, we feel that we don't got our rights, we feel we don't got our benefits, and the rich is just getting richer. That means those who owns the means of production, that's the capitalists. Now, I mean, they only care about their pockets, lining their pockets, so therefore that's the reason why we go to war. Now, I'm saying, because the war is meant to preserve, now I'm saying, protect the interests of the capitalist state. And that's how it maintains everything. And that's how it generates. So, you know, when the politicians, you know, be advocating all that for war, you know, it's a whole bunch of things that plays because now you have your weapon industry. You know what I mean? So you got people with private businesses that's their thing. They just make all these type of weapons, special gadgets and all that, and put them on the market, sell them to government officials, things of that nature. So when it comes to war generates money for them, and military-industrial complex, you know what I mean? It's a machine. It's just like prison-industrial complex. It's a machine. The military-industrial complex and the prison-industrial complex are both machines of the United States imperialists. You know what I mean? It is what it is. So anyway, like I said, so the word communist is like when you hear that was due to McCarthy, and then fucking Hoover just took it to a whole nother level. You know what I'm saying? McCarthy did listen, they communists, you know, they gotta be un-American because we going to war with Russia. And they shouldn't even said that shit because, you know, you had people Matter of fact, to this day, you have the Communist Party of USA, and it's not an American. You know, you have the Communist Party of Puerto Rico. All right? Listen, man, Boricua's not American, so that's not un-Boricua. All right? So, yeah, because if I'm not mistaken, socialism leads the road to communism, and it's supposed to bring about new democracy. And yes, although it says dictatorship of the proletariat, and you're always going to have the rule of law, and, Mao Zedong said to have a new bourgeoisie. So a new democracy and a new bourgeoisie. But that's like a ruling class. And then see the state. So, mind you, nothing is set in stone. This is the MLM. This is guiding principles that's still being practiced, and some things still needs to be treated, and some things is not applicable, depending where you at. Because each of the individuals I mentioned, Karl Marx, I haven't heard nothing bad about Karl Marx. I never heard nothing bad about Engels, Stalin. No, I never heard nothing bad about Stalin. Mao Zedong, good all to yesterday. It brought back to because Mike Tyson got a tattoo of Mao Zedong. So when Mike Tyson showed the world his tattoo, Mao Zedong, I think I might have been like 14 years old. So that's the first time I heard of Mao Zedong. That's the first time I read about that individual, Mao Zedong. So who knows that all of a sudden, bam, Mao Zedong, Communist Manifesto, that's what the Black Panthers was following, that's what the world, when they follow Maoist communism, is from Mao. But, each leader has its ups and downs, that's why you have the guiding principles, and you can't get caught up with personality. You can't get caught up with charismatic leadership. That's why the leadership is within us, within you, within me, and that's the reason why they have the PCM. That's the reason why you have the Congress. So like that, the Congress. I was talking about the Congress. I ain't talking about United States Congress. I'm talking about we got a little party Congress. The People's Congress. The Congress, shit like that. Oh, bird. Now I'm getting tired. Sorry about that. But basically, this is about party socialism liberation. The shit that some of the members been doing. I just read it out, pointed it out. This information that I'm giving to you is provided by the People's Voice News. Look that up, People's Voice News. And you'll be surprised the news that you find within the People's Voice News. Alright, so let me go back to TRN correctly points out that this is not merely this is furthermore. Oh shit. I read that part. Alright, so now on September 14, 2019 and May 8, 2020, information regarding, alright, this is the PSL that's in Chicago. So I was covering the Party of Social Liberation that was in Philly. Now I'm covering the party that's in Chicago. So on September 14, 2019 and May 8, 2020, information regarding an aborted split from PSL Chicago, the grooming occurring therein, and textbook transmisogyny and its supposed rectification was reported to PSL National by a member of the Chicago branch. Everything in Chicago, huh? In the final 28-page report released in December, the problems facing the party and its internal structure are laid out in painful detail. After a transgender woman, Veronica was groomed into participating in a failed split led by a party founder, John Beecham, who also sexually harassed her. She was not allowed to return to the party while others... Alright, I'm going to spell the word. It says CIS/HETERO. Cishet. Man, listen. I think basically just they referring to the training. That's what I think that is. Participants were local leadership then slandered Veronica as arrogant to excuse their denial of her renewed membership in what is clearly textbook. What is this, a new word? Transmisogyny? I guess that's a new word. I always heard misogyny. Now this is transmisogyny. Alright. Trans women are commonly derided and accused of possessing male traits or taking up too much space when we speak up for ourselves. Another transgender member of the Chicago branch was demotivated, which apparently means they were dissuaded from running for a leadership position for speaking to Veronica during the time period in which she had supposedly resigned. This comrade was called sloppy and a security risk, despite the fact that the Constitution of the PSL does not restrict members' communication with ex-members, and that both parties agreed not to discuss PSL matters at the onset of their communication. Presidential candidate and well-known PSL spokesperson Gloria La Riva was personally involved in disenfranchising and ostracizing Veronica. Transphobia and transmisogyny. Transphobia, primarily transmisogyny, has been a consistent issue among the Party for Socialism and Liberation leadership, including the Central Committee, which has no transgender members. PSL leadership treatment of both Dakota and Veronica are in no way isolated cases, though the party often treats rank-and-file members as disposable. This has especially been the case with trans members. I mean, feel like that, just go to a different party, go to your own party. The Central Committee recently reached out to several, but then again, I can see the argument though. The Central Committee recently reached out to several members who liked tweets that were critical of the party's statement that doxed Griselda. They were invited on to a call that consisted of, according to those on the call, 3 hours of emotional appeals by the Central Committee, secular rhetoric which refused to engage the document's criticism, browbeating, and baseless accusations of racism. When one transgender woman raised concerns over transphobia in the PSL, La Riva flatly denied that transphobia was a problem in PSL. When this person remarked that La Riva was not qualified to judge this as a cis woman, La Riva bizarrely responded, completely avoiding criticism. "Did you say cis woman, referring to me? Because I denounce that characterization of me as to belittle who I am. I'm a Latina woman, and I'll tell you something. There is a lot of racism going on here, and I would say that categorically. There has been no self-criticism for how La Riva unprincipled behavior and blatant transphobia on this call." Boom. See, that's what you see. You gotta be careful who you talking to, how you talk, online, FaceTime, and all that. Because they be recording. Boom, comes back, public. It should be noted, the party does little to nothing to integrate trans women cadre into leadership positions, including the Central Committee, which only consists of cisgender cadre. Ex-PSL members have raised this criticism to the Central Committee, who were unwilling to engage these criticisms in a principled manner. Criticism is the gift given for the sake of an organizational internal life and political line. Fear of criticism. Hold on, let me get something small. Excuse me. Damn, PSL's having a lot of issues. First PSL had an issue with a guy, I mean, was sexually harassing or sexually assaulting a Latina, and now we have, boom, this accusation of Latina, being biased towards a trans or whatever. I think sometimes people just jump to use words, and just try to use it like, how like people be like you're anti-Semitic. I think that's what that is. Like, people just try to use. That's what I really think that is. Like, the LGBT thing, like this trans misogyny, is going to be the new word, like what the Jewish people use for anti-Semitic. Whenever they can't get their way around within a job or within a particular sport or whatever the case may be, you're probably going to hear these words a lot, that, this person's probably suffering from trans misogyny. I believe this is a new word that you're going to be hearing a lot. Because my personal opinion on time, I think that might be held, let's say, when it comes to sports. I think when it comes to sports, biological woman with biological woman, biological man with biological man, trans woman with trans woman, trans man with trans man. Just how you have a handicap sports, this might as well make a LGBT sports, to cease all the headaches. False democratic centralism. All right? So this is, before I go there. Criticism is a gift given for the sake of an organizational, internal life, and political line. Fear of criticism is evidence of entrenched liberalism, and all available evidence suggests that the PSL fears criticism above all else. If honest, comradely criticism, especially from members of your own organization, and the exposure of abuse is a genuine threat to your party, then your party is not revolutionary but instead reactionary and has no right to lead the masses or even exist. So false democratic centralism. Both inside and outside the party, there must be a full democratic life, which means conscientiously putting democratic centralism into effect. So we must conscientiously bring questions out into the open and let the masses speak out. Even at the risk of being cursed, we should still let them speak out. The result of their curses at the worst will be that we are thrown out and cannot go on doing this kind of work, demoted or transferred. What is so impossible about that? Why should a person only go up and never go down? Why should one only work in one place and never be transferred to another? That's coming from Mao Zedong. Now, PSL leadership distorted conception of democratic centralism allows their central committee to be disconnected from the rank and file membership and go uncriticized. So one former member noted that PSL view of democratic centralism was one in which actions that have not been democratically decided upon or sprung upon the rank and file members by national leadership and expected to be defended with no prior discussion or notice. The few formal criticism of leadership made are met with threats of expulsion, if not immediate expulsion. Maya recognized that essential to this organizational principle is the atmosphere of speaking out and of correcting shortcomings. So cadre are obligated to bring their ideas and criticism to the party and engage in debates within the party regarding actions and lines to take. Maya also recognized that as a consequence of criticism of the party, leadership may be changed and cadre may be demoted. So the case of abuse and misleadership mentioned above reveal a culture and structure that limits the debate and discussion necessary at every level of the party to ensure democratic centralism and discourage and at times penalizes criticism of leadership. Even those who criticize PSL after leaving have been silenced by PSL leadership. Though Mike Pressner may not be a member of the Central Committee, he is a prominent PSL member and a leading activist in the Answer Coalition. So Pressner served in the U.S. Army since he was 19 years old and claimed to have duties such as ground surveillance, home raids, and interrogating Iraqi civilians, often using obscene torture tactics. He famously remarked that the real terrorist was him and has since leaving the army committed his life to anti-war activism and building PSL. Look at that. In 2014, prisoner was also willing to use the U.S. court system to file a restraining for civil harassment against against a former civil harassment. I just learned something new. Civil harassment. Civil harassment. Okay. I just learned something new. All right. U.S. court system to file a restraining for civil harassment against a former PSL member who criticized him and PSL. This was never condemned by PSL leadership, though the case was dismissed in court. So many PSL members are unwilling to discuss criticism people have towards their party, for they see discussion of internal issues as violating democratic centralism. When bringing these criticisms to leadership, members are often given shallow dismissals and are told to trust their leadership, to trust that democratic centralism is ensuring a principal party. Democratic centralism is supposed to enhance the work of communist formation while keeping all levels of leadership accountable to the whole party. As Scott Harrison notes in his essay, Two Concepts of Democratic Centralism facilitates the division of labor. It promotes the growth of skills and technical expertise in the positive sense. It sets up organized networks. Which can aid the work of individuals. It encourages the collective examination of individual work and criticism and self-criticism. It helps keep us all busy in our works and productive, and it results in tremendous encouragement for individual work. Democratic centralism is portrayed by the PSL as a formal structure that can be mechanically adopted rather than a set of principles that guides the forging of the party, introduced to enhance and consolidate revolutionary work and organizations. So an internal PSL document cited in this 2018 criticism of PSL, but this is 2021. All right, I guess that's a quote. Communication between members in different branches that does not first go through the leadership bodies of the respective branches, which can be called horizontal communication, is generally prohibited. Members between branches are allowed to casually message one another, but group chats are prohibited to prevent factionalism and gossip. And meeting up with members of other branches requires permission from leadership. That's crazy. When this information became public, PSL members defended the policy as in line with democratic centralism. Actually, it's retarded if you ask me. So you telling me, all right, as I saying, all right, I got Nobody Owns Party right here in New York, and then someone else opened up Nobody Owns Party, let's say New Jersey, and someone else opened up Nobody Owns Party, let's say Pennsylvania, and I'm telling people, yo, I don't want you speaking to those that's in Jersey, those that's, listen, that's not democratic centralism. We're not having that. That was called, we gotta learn from the mistakes of history. We're not having that. And we gotta learn from others. So this is what they call indirect knowledge. I'm reading this. This is the experience of the Party of Socialism Liberation. Just like I read about what was going on, what went down between the New Black Panther Party and the Revolutionary Intercommunal Black Panther Party. The New Black Panther Party, if I'm not mistaken, the New African Black Panther Party, that's probably headed by an individual by the name of Shaka Zulu, if I'm not mistaken, and the one that's had the Revolutionary Intercommunal Black Panther Party, if I'm not mistaken, his name should be Rashid Johnson. So yeah, you got Shaka Zulu for the other one, and Rashid Johnson for that one. Democratic centralism was summed up by Mayo this way: we must affirm anew the discipline of the party, namely the individual is subordinate to the organization. The minority is subordinate to the majority. The lower level is subordinate to the higher level. I don't like that subordinate word. And the entire membership is subordinate to the Central Committee, but I understand what it's talking about. Whoever violates these articles of discipline disrupts party unity. It must be kept in mind that strict adherence to this pattern of democratic centralism was especially necessary in a clandestine militarized party in the midst of People's War. Those are nowhere near the conditions PSL is in. And prohibiting, so that's what you call deceptive intelligence. You know what I'm saying? Making it, tweaking it to make it work just for them. You know what I mean? There was corruption, and he tweaked this, like, all right, no, look, we in a go for doing this. All right. It must be kept in mind that strict adherence to this pattern of democratic centralism was especially necessary in the clandestine militarized party in the midst of a People's War, but those are nowhere near the condition PSL is in. And prohibiting horizontal communication is at the very least inappropriate. The strictness to which PSL policies are enforced depends on the branch and whether or not the leadership favors the transgressor. There is also a tendency amongst members seeking higher positions in the party to snitch on their comrades for violating the communication policy. All in all, this policy in practice has routinely protected abusers and silenced dissent. See, when you silence dissent, that's when you kill democracy. Because you're supposed to open dissent as long as it's done with constructive criticism and not a coup. All right. PSL forced democratic centralism. All right, PSL forced democratic centralism, false democratic centralism, or bureaucratic centralism, breeds a culture of distrust and unprincipled leadership that has been weaponized for the abuse and oppression of women and non-men. Phony Marxism, Leninism, and reactionary collaboration. When it comes to theory, little, if anything, differentiates PSL from Workers' World Party, PSL founding members wrote in 2004. As former leaders and members of Workers' World Party, we defend that group's historical tradition and mission, particularly, as I know I ain't gonna speak on that, particularly that of its own founder, Sam Marcy. Although we believe that the Workers' World Party leadership is no longer capable of fulfilling that mission, we still consider it to be a progressive organization with many honest activists. So Sam Marcy led a faction out of the Trotskyist Society. He led a faction out of a Socialist Workers' Party. You know what I mean? They behind Trotsky. That formalized as the Workers' World Party. The new party subscribed to Marcy's global class war theory, which championed both critical support for all existing socialist states and the need to combat Stalinism, seeing the USSR as a revolutionary social system with a counter-revolutionary leadership. Wow. So, developing Trotskyist theories of permanent revolution and the degenerated or deformed worker state, Marcy proposed that socialist states, including the USSR, are necessarily deformed because true socialism could only exist with the complete elimination of capitalism. So it's saying if you're a socialist country, you can't have capitalism. So through the 60s and 70s, WWP's unconditional support to all enemies of U.S. imperialism flattened the contradictions in the international communist movement. Siding with both Khrushchev and Mao during the Sino-Soviet split, today Marcyites in both WWP and PSL, workers, yeah, that's what that is. All right, reject the analysis of communists fighting people's war. Reject the analysis of communists fighting the people's war. That only says, including the Communist Party of the Philippines, which is actively being attacked by weapons from China given to Duterte. And that's another crazy part. You know what I'm saying? Like China, the communists, but yeah, you giving guns to a people that's fighting for their liberation, fighting for their sovereignty. Not supposed to do that. And continue to claim China as a socialist state and anti-imperialist power. Yeah, because they're not supposed to be doing that. Despite the consolidation of corporatism and China and their imperialist exploitation throughout Latin America, Africa, and Asia, resulting from Deng's counter-revolution. And, all right, check this out. My eyes is burning. Y'all have enough information. I'll read this one quote before. It says, proletarian feminism is a weapon. We recognize that PSL is a fundamentally reactionary organization and not a So basically it's saying that Party of Socialism and Liberation is not a revolutionary organization, it's a reactionary organization. A reactionary organization including organizers at its best. This is not the result of political degradation, but rather has been the case since its inception. So proletarian feminism is the weapon. In the seminal piece on proletarian feminist praxis on standards of feminist conduct, the Center for Marxist-Leninist Minority Studies have laid out a clear path for dealing with male chauvinism within the revolutionary movement. Revolutionary organizations, if they are genuine, must automatically expel any member who engages in anti-woman violence and abuse. And I agree with that. I'm against womanizing. So therefore, if you're the type of dude that puts your hands on your wife, don't even join the party. Organizations that fail to do this cannot be taken seriously and must be publicly exposed for their liberalism and failing to oppose male chauvinism. The restorative justice framework and the accountability process used by anarchists and other activists more often than not merely reproduce in practice the dynamics of patriarchy. So for Marxist-Leninist rectification and criticism, self-criticism, without a policy of exposure often becomes the same liberal process with a different name. In contrast, zero tolerance for male chauvinist violence and abuse must be the principle, meaning automatic exposure and depending on the circumstances, public exposure. This is the only way to forge organizations that are developing the actuality of women's emancipation, not just talking about it as an appealing idea. So during investigations by an organization in the United States into incidents of anti-woman violence and abuse. So the word of the victim alleging that violence and abuse has been committed against them must be given more weight than the word of the accused. If there is a factual dispute, the guiding principle must be to adopt policies and enact decisions based principally on the victim's account of events. So victims of domestic violence often have their reality denied or manipulated consistently by their abusers. This must be taken into account when investigating the facts and when coming to a decision about the accused. So the revolutionary organization in the United States, which is not a court of justice with the court material powers of investigation and presumptions, cannot allow the accused to simply deny the victim's account in part or wholesale, call into question the victim's motives, and mobilize their social network to pressure the victim and the organization. So revolutionary organizations in the United States are not states making decisions on punishments and rehabilitations, which will operate according to different standards. They are voluntary associations that must make a call, generally based on limited and conflicting verbal or written accounts on how to respond to an incident, taking into consideration the need to advance the struggle for women's emancipation, to develop women as militants and leaders, and to protect the organization's work and reputation. All right. Let me see. It says just as any organization on the American left that does not recognize the primacy of the national contradiction is doomed to the dustbin of history, so is any organization that does not give primacy to the organization and liberation of proletarian women and non-men on our own terms. Proletarian feminism is the weapon by which we achieve this liberation, and it must be turned on all reactionary forces, even those who will call themselves our comrades. So we know that the comradeship of misogynists and racists is no comradeship at all. So, and we do not and no one any favors by hiding our criticism away. Only by forging a Myrick party that keeps proletarian feminism in command and is held accountable through criticism, self-criticism at every level, can we achieve a revolution capable of overthrowing capitalism, imperialism, settler colonialism, and patriarchy once and for all. And then it says, the members of For the People PDX declare our complete and unflinching solidarity with all who have fallen victim to male chauvinism, trans misogyny, and abuse within the Party for Socialism and Liberation. So we call upon all Party for Socialism and Liberation members who seek liberation for all oppressed people living in the so-called United States to formally leave the organization. All right. So for those who lead the Party of Socialism and Liberation, y'all can come check me out at the Nobody Owns Party. There's the application process and the probation process. All right. No proletarian feminist can remain in an organization with a consistent record of unaccountable abuse. That being said, PSL never had the potential to be a revolutionary organization. PSL is a fundamentally reactionary organization where principal struggle is not practiced. So in that case, PSL has probably is now being recognized because you have militant anti-imperialists and you have liberal anti-imperialists. So probably PSL are liberal anti-imperialists. All right, as Maya wrote in on practice to lead the revolution to victory, a political party must depend on the correctness of its own political line and the solidity of its own organization. So rectification is impossible in PSL not only because of bureaucratic centralism, but also because of the party's revisionist, Marxist-like lines which distorts historical and global contradictions to ultimately serve the aims of imperialism. All these things that PSL lacks, misuses, or misunderstands, proletarian feminism, clandestines, criticism, self-criticism, even anti-imperialism, are not just useful in communist organizing, but necessarily strategic imperatives for uniting communist nuclei with the masses on a principled basis for the preparation of people's war. So there is one option for principled communists in PSL. Resign and struggle with your comrades to do the same. We also call revolutionary organizations and organizers to break any tactical unity. Oh shit. With PSL. So I gotta make a announcement. Wow. And for PSL to be isolated in all organizing efforts, including coalitions, and given no platforms at demonstrations. Wow. This is coming from the people views. What I just read, and this was a long article, boy. I'm about to go get me some rest. At least for an hour. Yeah, all right, so the name of this article, and I'm going to share it. What I just read, I'm going to share it on my Facebook. The article, I'm going to share it on my Facebook. So just go to my Facebook page, and you're going to see me sharing the article. What the hell is this? Case access. Okay. Post. Got it. All right. And then it goes on to say, yeah, I read a lot, man. All right, so basically it says it's for the people in Portland, it's for the people in Long Beach, for the people in San Diego, for the people in Salt Lake City, for the people in Boston, for the people in Chicago, for the people in St. Louis, for the people in Bloomington, for the people in Baltimore, for the people in Rashida. So I guess New York City is good to go. Alrighty. Alright. So with that said, salute. Have a blessed day. Have a blessed and productive day. For those who are probably just going to bed, good night. You know, when you wake back up, have a blessed day. All right? This is Malik Alim, the chairman of the Noble Young Lords Party. Spanish on the base. It's all about nobility, baby. Be humble, grateful, and stay noble. One Lord, one people, stay noble. Power to the people. Salute. Assalamu alaikum.